Hello, Facebook world, and welcome to another edition of Mi Gente on Air. Thank you for tuning in with me tonight. We have quite a show. We're going to be talking about Dia de los Muertos, as well as the Queen pageantry of the Unión Cívica Mexicana. So I want you to come on into the room. I invite you, and I want you to leave comments or questions or concerns. We have Alejandra Fulgencio, the 2019 Reina de la Unión Cívica Mexicana. So we're going to have a show tonight to help promote the events that are coming up. We have a dance on November the 5th at the Unión Cívica for the Queen Dance. And then we have on November the 2nd, the Dia de los Muertos, the 13th annual at the Unión Cívica Mexicana, the celebration. So we're going to talk all about that tonight here on Mi Gente on Air. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Mi Gente on Air on 100.5 and 790 News Radio WSGW and online WSGW.com. Now, here is your host, Larry Rodarte.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to Mi Gente on Air, the show that pertains to Latino culture, yet is here to bring awareness to the entire listening audience. Tonight, I have quite a show for you. We're going to talk history of one of the oldest Latino Civica organizations, and we're going to talk about the Mexican holiday called Dia de los Muertos, because it is taking America by storm. Have you seen the calavera faces or the skeleton faces around your local supermarkets and wonder why? Do you relate this to the Disney movie Coco? Do you understand what the meaning of Day of the Dead actually is? Did they teach you this stuff in high school? Well, we're going to get all into that. But first, I want to talk about the queenship, the pageantry, the La Reina of la Unión Cívica Mexicana. In 2019, a young student named Alejandra Fulgencio was crowned the Civica Organization Queen. She was involved with many of the signature events. She wore the crown proudly, but then a little thing called the pandemic hit. We're going to talk to Alejandra tonight about her reign and what the significance of the pageantry meant to her, along with her scholarship, as we're about to crown a new queen. Please help me welcome Reina Alejandra Fulgencio to Mi Gente on Air. Alejandra, how are you?
Hello, I'm very good. Thank you for having me on. How are you?
Good, good. It's so good to have you here in the Mi Gente on Air studios because I'm excited. It's been a while since we've seen each other. And as we had mentioned prior to the show, it's been almost 3 years. 3 years
years.
because of the pandemic. And I think the last event that Alejandra was involved with was the Tamale Taste Off in 2019. And then the pandemic hit. So I want my listeners to understand that the history of the Queen pageant dates back to 1945 with La Unión Cívica Mexicana, when Amada Garcia was crowned queen. Can you believe that? Almost 80 years ago. And it has been a tradition that we've tried to keep up. And in the last 3 years, we were not able to do that because of the pandemic. But Alejandra is the reigning queen still from 2019. And I want everybody to know a little bit about where you're from, what high school you attended, and if you're attending college now.
Yeah, so I was born and raised here in Saginaw. Been here my entire life. I went to Saginaw Arts and Sciences Academy for the majority of my grade school career, I guess you could say. And then I joined the Great Lakes Bay Early College program, which I graduated my high school career. And I pursued Saginaw Valley State University, where I just graduated this past May with my Bachelor's of Science. So that is extremely exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, part of what the scholarship that the Unión Cívica gives with this pageantry, the Queen's contest, was $1,000 scholarship that went to Alejandro. What did you use that for?
I used that toward my college degree, which I can proudly say I graduated debt-free. So,
all right,
huge
there you go.
accomplishment.
Yeah, especially this day and age.
Yes.
It's a wonderful thing that we have this Queen pageantry and the history and the culture that goes along with it, and your participation in many of our signature events. And it's wonderful to know that we are raising money now for the future queen that we're going to be crowning next week, a new queen. And you're going to be a part of that, I hope. And
Yes, yes, I will. I will.
what made you back in 2019 run for queen of the Unión Cívica Mexicana?
So, as I was approaching my final years of the early college program, knowing I had actual college to look forward to and to pay for myself, I, was scouring all scholarships I could get my hands on. However, it wasn't just because of the scholarship. My mom, Lucia, was also a queen many years ago, so I kind of felt more connected to her in doing this. So that was awesome.
Wow. So Lucia, what was her maiden name?
Vargas.
Lucia Vargas was queen, I believe, in like 1982.
I'm not
Or,
sure the exact year.
so I think it was the early 80s, but she's now working at the Saginaw Mental Health, correct?
Yes.
She has a very important position there. It's so nice to see. I saw a post of her recently where she was accomplishing something there, and I just thought, go ahead, Reina, because once
Yeah.
a Reina, always
Always
a
a
Reina.
reina.
That's what we always say, and I'm so glad to see that you're excelling as well in your educational endeavors. What was the experience like for you, like when you actually were crowned the queen and representing and being the face of the Unión Cívica?
It was surreal. It was a super exciting moment. Not even just that moment, but the days leading up to it, all the events that my court and I had to endure and go through, and all the people that we met, all the parades that we were in. It was really exciting. And I felt a lot closer to my culture, a lot closer than I've ever felt before. And I have the Civica to thanks for that. So.
We just had the passing of Queen Elizabeth II in London, and I saw an interview where she talked about how heavy the crown was on her head,
Mm.
and hers was quite heavy with big jewels. How was that crown for you?
Not as heavy as hers, I can imagine. However, it did feel heavy, not just the physical weight of it, but everything else that came along with it. All the little Hispanic girls looking up to us at all the events and the parades. It really created this responsibility for us that I was really glad to have.
Well, it was really an exciting time. I remember we had quite a number of girls that had actually put in applications, just like this year. And we have, I want to announce some of the girls that are running because we had at least 12 applications that were
Wow.
requested. And we've narrowed it down to Jayla Flores, Gabriela Olivares, and Andrea Esparza. So those are the three that are. One of them will be queen next November the 5th, as I mentioned at the Queen's Dance. We will crown her. And what did being the queen mean to you, Alejandra, in the long term? Like I said, you've been queen since 2019, the reigning queen. Although the Civica during the pandemic came, and we shut down most of our signature events. But what was it like for you, when you were actually involved in pertaining, to the signature events?
Yeah, so like I said, it allowed me to feel closer to my culture, so that was extremely important to me. It's always fun getting to know a little bit more about who you are and where you come from, and also getting to know the people of Saginaw, the Hispanic people of Saginaw, and everything that they put in and have done for our community. So it was really important to me, and it still is. Obviously, I was bummed I couldn't participate in the biggest event of the year that we hold, the Cinco de Mayo festival. I know, like you said, though, once a reina, always a reina. So I know I will have many opportunities in the future to participate and be a part of that. But
Did,
yeah, it was all just exciting.
did you have your wave down, the wave, as you prepared for the Cinco de Mayo to ride on your
Yes.
Civica float, the Queen float? And yeah, it was unfortunate that we had to go into lockdown in, that March of 2020.
Hmm.
And, the Civica has given these scholarships for a number of different years. And have the scholarships that you've received for your educational endeavors, whatever organization, other ones, was it as exciting as the ones that you received from the Civica?
I am grateful for every scholarship I have received.
Good answer.
I definitely was more active in a ways that I was not with my other ones. So that was a lot of excitement, obviously. And like I said, it drew close to actually who I am as a person. So it was very exciting, yes.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts today when we realize that we're bringing back this long historical event to the Civica, the Queen pageantry?
What are my thoughts?
Yeah.
Um,
What did you think when you first saw that, we're finally bringing it back after 3 years?
my first thought was, wow, finally. 3 years. Time flew by. It really did. It's exciting though. It's exciting to continue on the tradition. I'm excited to pass down my crown. A little bittersweet moment. But the 3 girls that you named and all the other 9 applicants as well are also deserving of this moment, and it's time for somebody else. So I'm excited for them.
And have you talked about it with your mother? Because it was hard for her to give up her crown back in the 80s, right? The girls just want to have fun days.
Oh, yeah. She kept asking me throughout the 3 years. She's like, have you heard anything? And I'm like, no, not yet, but I know they'll contact me when it's time. And it's time.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. And like I said, we're having the Queen's Dance on November the 5th at the Unión Cívica Mexicana. And we have Gabriel Bruciaga and the Bad Boys. They're going to be playing, and we're going to crown the new queen. You know, one of the events that was really part of your reign, and I remember you and Gabby and Marisa Cardinali. I love to say her last name. Your court. It was very important to back you, and you all got involved with the Dia de los Muertos event, the 12th annual celebration at the Civica. I mean, you donned your makeup with the calavera faces. What was that experience like for you?
That was super fun. One of my best memories I have, actually. Growing up, I always knew what Dia de los Muertos was and, learned about it in school, my Spanish classes and whatnot. In my family, we acknowledged it, but we weren't truly huge on celebrating it. So the Civica gave me a lot of information that I had no idea about. And I was able to, like you said, paint the calavera face on me and dress up and look at all the beautiful ofrendas for everybody else's family and everything. And it was a really beautiful experience. I think it's something everybody should experience at least once.
Yeah, yeah. And we're bringing that back on November 2nd, Wednesday, a Wednesday this year. We're going to celebrate the 13th annual Dia de los Muertos. And this year, we're going to be bringing food trucks because they become so popular in the area and throughout the Americas. And I wanted to ask you as well, when you think about and see the Mexican holiday becoming more and more popular in America, what does that mean to somebody in your generation? And, it just seems like more and more. So, like I said in the beginning of the show, the opening, you see the calavera faces at the supermarkets. I saw them at Sam's, they with plants in them. And I'm thinking, oh my God, we've come a long way. What are your thoughts when you see that?
I get excited. So growing up, going to the schools that I did, there weren't many Hispanics surrounding me. And so I knew about my culture, I just wasn't completely surrounded by it. So now that it's evolving, it is really something that everybody should learn more about and get introduced to and experience it. Like I said, it's a fun time. It's a beautiful time. It's a remembering time. So
Yeah, and it's something that in my work with the Unión Cívica and Mi Gente, we really tried to educate the community about what Dia de los Muertos is, and we want to make sure that there really is an awareness that it's not the Mexican Halloween, as many people have sometimes thought, because you see the skeleton faces and the calaveras, what we call them, and they dress that way. And sometimes you will see some people who will dress in their Halloween costumes as calavera faces. And really, some may find that disrespectful to the actual holiday celebration of Dia de los Muertos. But I want the listeners to understand that really, it coincides with the Christian and the Catholic faith of All Souls Day
Mm-hmm.
and All Saints Day. And it's a time to remember those who have lived and have passed on. And Dia de los Muertos is a celebration, and it's not involving scary tactics or scary emblems of like witches and goblins like the
Mm-mm.
Halloween. It really is, the calavera faces. There's a meaning behind that, and that meaning is, Jonathan, I think I said it last week, didn't I, on the show? I'm not sure, but that meaning is um, where they are mocking death, because as we all know, we all have to die and pass on. And in the Mexican holiday, they're basically dressing in those calavera faces, the skeletal faces, to say, although we all have to die, death cannot defeat us. And so they're mocking death in a way, and they're saying death cannot defeat us because we have our eternal life. We have that life that goes on in the afterworld with our loved ones and families. And that's why, the celebration of Dia de los Muertos is so prominent in Mexico. And it's becoming more and more prominent in the United States and the Americas, because they're celebrating that celebration of life, and how we look upon it in a much healthier, I think, way. Because what is the alternative if you don't have, or if you believe in the afterlife? And so that's part of what we've tried to do with the Union Cívica Mexicana, with celebrating all these years. We don't just have it to recognize our culture, although that's a big part of it. It's also to educate those that, as especially as the movie Coco came out with Disney, and they did a really good job with it. Did you see
Yeah,
the movie?
I loved it.
Yeah. And it's, they did a really nice job. And I think within the movie, part of what they tried to display was the fact that if a picture was on an ofrenda, the altars, then their loved ones lived on. And that may be a little bit of an exaggeration in terms of, I've never thought of it that way. That if the picture wasn't on the ofrenda, then they didn't live on.
Right.
But that they had to, make it a movie, and Hollywoodizes it, and it was really important that they got the story pretty close. And I think that, as we talked about it in our show last week, Morelia, Michoacan, I visited there during Dia de los Muertos, and it was pretty close. It was pretty close to what the movie portrayed. So,
Mm-hmm.
what are you planning on doing this year for Dia de los Muertos?
Me, I'm hoping to be a part of your guys' celebration the 2nd.
All right.
I'm
So you're
hoping
coming.
so. I'm hoping so. I have to check my work schedule.
Well, tell me a little bit about your education, because that's important. Like we said, when we talk about the Queen's Scholarship, tell me about. It's awesome that you've got a Bachelor's of Science already, and it's like you were just graduating from SAS. I remember you girls running around, and now you're already a college graduate. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I have my major in biology. I have a minor in chemistry. I had plans to go to professional school. However, God has a different plan for me. So I'm trying to follow the right direction right now. I've been applying to jobs so I can use my degree for that. I'm really open-minded right now, though. SVSU taught me a lot. The Civica taught me a lot about being perceptive to everything around me, and being just open to a lot of new things, not so close-minded. And I'm ready for it. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited to be a part of the future, and I couldn't have done it without this scholarship, without my degree, and without all the beautiful people I've met at the Civica. So
Oh, you're kind for saying that. One of the things that we like to promote is within this Mi Gente on Air show is the history. And Alejandra comes from a long family history here in Saginaw. Her grandfather was Jimmy Fulgencio, and he was the leader of the band, if you will, the Rondalla of St. Joseph Catholic Church. and was really instrumental in the music for the church at that time. And tell us a little bit about who your father was, because we mentioned your mother, Lucia Vargas, and
Mhm.
your father, and as well as your grandmother.
Yeah, so my father, Rene Fulgencio, son of Jaime Fulgencio and Esther Fulgencio. Um, my Fulgencio family is a huge, huge musical, artistic, smart. I could go on and on about my family. They're the best. We are very, very family oriented. So, growing up together, growing up in the church together was always a very big thing for us. Um, Very kind people. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you know a lot of my family members, and you could say the same. So I get all of who I am from them and my Vargas family, and I'm forever indebted to their love.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so special is the celebration of familia that we have within our cultures. It's a big part of it. We're very
It
passionate when it
is.
comes to our families and our foods. And
Yes.
Esther Fulgencio, your grandmother, she worked at the church, was secretary for many years for St. Joseph's over on 6th Street
Mhm.
in Kirk for many years when it was the old church, and now when it was the new church. She's retired now.
Yep.
But what a leg- legacy that they have left for all of their children and their grandchildren. And it's, I'm sure they're very proud of you and what you, when you were queen of the
Yeah.
Civica, as well as, that you've got your bachelor's of science in biology. That's awesome.
Yes, sir.
It's amazing for me to see when the years have gone by, and I think the pandemic, everything seemed to just speed up, didn't it? It seemed like
Yeah.
um
Blink of an eye.
yeah, it truly did. And we really went through some difficult times with the pandemic, and just the political divisiveness that we had in our country. And you really seen a lot. We lived in historical times, and we've talked about that on many a times on this show. But what's it like for a young girl, because now you're what, 22,
21.
21 still, my god. And what's it like for you as a Latina in the state of Michigan?
Wow. Big question.
Yeah.
I guess that's still something I'm trying to navigate through. You know, being a female, but not just a female, being a Latina female in the science field, it's not something that I'm surrounded by. I'm not surrounded by people that look like me, and I've recognized that, and I'm trying to do my part in, you know, broadening that and shining light on this fact. And, I'm sure there are many others, but they're not from Saginaw. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I think it was very important for me. I got to speak at the multicultural graduate luncheon at Saginaw Valley, and I felt very honored to do that. I was asked by my name, and so I think that and future opportunities are just going to be small steps into a bigger picture of hopefully getting more Latinas into the science field.
Yeah, and it's important. It's really important, and I think you're going to be a great role model. You are the future of our community, of your generation. There are so many that I see who are pursuing higher education, where a few decades back it just wasn't, that the opportunity wasn't there
Hmm.
for Latinos as it is today. And it's so proud. I'm so proud to see that, to see you excelling, and many others. But it's really hitting my heart, because I graduated from Michigan State in clinical laboratory science with a minor in microbiology. So it kind
Oh,
of, yeah, did
I
you
did
know
not know
that?
that. No.
Yeah. Yeah, I did actually. And here I am in journalism. So how did that happen?
Right.
But it
Wow.
it doesn't matter what you do in terms of, um, I say this all the time. Any 18-year-old isn't um, really sure. They're not sure what they want to do for their future endeavors. Who would know at 18? And
Hmm.
so, sometimes they, push you to a major, to declare a major. And sometimes you can change your mind along the way, but you've got that foundation, you've got the education behind you, and that's what's really important. So I'm glad to see that you've graduated with a bachelor's of science and that you're excelling. So we're going to be back and we're going to talk more with Alejandra Fulgencio, la reina de la Unión Cívica Mexicana. And we'll be back to talk more about Dia de los Muertos and the Queen pageant.
You're listening to Gente on Air on WSGW.
So we're talking with Queen Alejandra Fulgencio, and I see many of you in the room, and I'm inviting you to leave comments or questions you may have for La Reina or anything that's pertaining to the Queen pageant or the Dia de los Muertos celebration. And that's what we want to do. You know, we want to make Mi Gente on Air, your show, a show where you can ask questions, and maybe someday we will also take phone calls, right, Jonathan? What do you think of that?
Yeah, we could.
We could take phone calls from the audience. Yeah, and you know, maybe that's something we can do in the future. Yeah. But I think that when you do that, I think it opens you up to having even more interesting shows, because sometimes those calls can be difficult. And I see that happening on the Art Lewis show, right? And I know Art gets all kinds of calls, and so that would be fun, though. That would be fun, and we'll talk about some major topics pertaining to our community, and we'll think about that. It's going to be up to Jonathan. I'm going to leave it up to him because he's running the board here, and he's going to have to take the phone calls, right, Jonathan?
Could manage it.
Let's go back into the show and let's talk more with Alejandra Fulgencio, la reina.
You're listening to Mi Gente on Air on WSGW.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Mi Gente on Air, where we celebrate Latino culture, concerns, and contributions. And that's exactly what we're talking about here today. We're talking about the longtime civic organization celebrating Dia de los Muertos on November the 2nd, next Wednesday. And we're going to also have the Queen's Dance, which we will crown the new queen of the Unión Cívica Mexicana on November 5th, that Saturday. So we were really busy over there, over at 2715 Wadsworth. We don't just sell patitos, but we actually are, having these signature events. We're bringing them back after 3 years. And did you happen to go to the Cinco de Mayo this year? Were you there?
No, I had to work.
You had to work.
I
know. That event was just huge. We were so surprised at how big, and I think it was because everybody was ready to come back, and celebrate that event in the parade. And so we're hoping that, these next events that we're having, that we're bringing back as well, will be as popular. We have a Halloween party that's happening this Saturday, October 29th. Jess and Angelica Vasquez, they're putting on the Halloween party. Now, I remember you dressed up and your boyfriend and the other your court. Everybody was dancing at the hall for Halloween.
It was a good time.
Yeah, it really was. So I remember it was packed too. It was a pretty packed hall. Great turnout, and we're hoping that happens as well for the Halloween party. So as Mexican Americans of this civic organization, we do celebrate Halloween, and we, as an American holiday, and we do celebrate Dia de los Muertos. And it's a mesh of cultures, and it's like sometimes we have the best of both worlds when we do that. And I think that's where each year just continues to grow. And as I said, the Dia de los Muertos, it just seems to really have grown throughout the Americas. I'm seeing on Facebook posts all the time about every community has a celebration now. And I remember in 2008 when we had our first brunch there at the Civica, a lot of people were familiar with Dia de los Muertos and putting up the ofrendas. Now, what they do with these ofrendas, the altars, they put them up to remember their deceased loved ones, and it can have pictures of them. It can have foods that they may like. They have a lot of the marigold flowers, because the marigold flowers are the ones that the Aztecs and the Mayans believe they drew the spirits to back home, with those marigold flowers. And we have different baskets of fruits that they may have liked. There's some ofrendas that have beer cans, because somebody may have liked to drink beer in their lifetime. And they have sombreros, and you can see that on the screen here. But, it's just a remembrance, that time of remembrance and celebration of that life that, really meant something to somebody at one time, and that they want to meet in the afterworld. And that's really a big part of the Dia de los Muertos. So we're having a contest as well at the 13th annual celebration for the best ofrenda. Belia Gomez and her family have won it in several years. I think she's coming back. But, it takes a little bit of effort to put those ofrendas up. You got to collect, the pictures and the items and things that are very meaningful to you. And it's just beautiful when you actually see them. And one of the things that we're going to do, because this celebration is going to be from 12 noon until 7 p.m. And the reason is because the food truck vendors, they said, hey, let's get the lunch crowd and let's get the dinner crowd. But no, that's part of it. But what we wanted to do, it gets dark earlier now. And so we wanted to light up those ofrendas as the dark comes. And can you imagine?
That'll be beautiful.
Yeah, it'll be very beautiful. It's very meaningful when you see them lit up with either the candles or the Christmas lights that they sometimes use. So, it's really a big part of this cultural celebration of Saginaw now, because even at the Saginaw Art Museum, they're going to be celebrating the 3rd annual Dia de los Muertos celebration. And they've also got ofrendas there. And they're starting their celebration from October 29th, which is coming up very soon, until November 5th. And they will be featuring on the 29th at 1 p.m. the documentary Michoacan to Michigan. And we had Len Rajewski here last week, and he talked about that. And it was a great show. So there's a lot happening in our community. And there's just like this huge recognition, a boom, if you will. As I say, how does that make you feel? What are you seeing out there when you're, going about your daily life as a Latina in Saginaw?
And seeing all of that.
Yeah.
I feel proud. I feel proud to be who I am.
Yeah.
As simple as that.
And your siblings, they're doing all well. I know you had your sister here in the studio with you for support, and your brothers, how they doing?
Yeah, my oldest brother, they're all my best friends. Family's super important to me. My other brother, he just moved back from Atlanta, so it's awesome to have all 4 of us back together again. My sister's still doing good at Saginaw Valley. We're all great. Everything's great. We're happy and we're healthy, thankfully. The pandemic took a number on everybody, but we're all still here. So.
We're survivors, yes. And tell me, have you talked with your court at all? Have you kept in touch with them in the last few years?
A little bit, not as much as I would like to, but everybody has their own thing going on, and a little bit. I still have a lot of love for them. So.
Well, we have the queen, and then we have the first runner-up, the second runner-up. And I think there was a number of applicants as well when you ran. I can't remember. It's been 3 years, but
a few. I mean, I
think there was like
that
6
side
or
wasn't
7.
really disclosed to us, so.
I think there were about 6 or 7, but we take it very seriously. The Queen Committee takes it very seriously. I'm not a part of it. I stay out of it, but they have, criteria, and there's an age requirement, 18 to 25, I think. And you have to have your transcripts sent to the Civica. You have to have recommendation letters. You also have to, what else was the process? Do you remember?
I think there was a personal essay you had to write as why you wanted to be queen. You were recommendation letters, transcripts, an application questionnaire. I think it was 3 years ago now.
so they take it pretty serious. It's it's not just on any there's on just one thing, there's a number of criteria that they have to follow, and there's a checklist. They have to check mark that they've, put each one of those things in their packet. So
interviews.
Yes,
we have to do interviews.
the interview process is very important as well. So I mean, it's a thorough process, and we take it very seriously because the Queen represents the Civica. She is the face in that year of her reign of the Civica, and there will be interviews on TV stations. I'm sure we'll have the reigning Queen who comes in on the show. She usually goes to WNEM TV5 for Cinco de Mayo, announcing, it's really something to see, and we try to make the pomp and circumstances a part of it because we want to make it fun, right? We want to make it fun for each of these girls. It's not just about getting the money for a scholarship, although that's a very important part of it, but it's also celebrating the culture that we try to portray as an organization to the greater community, not just the Latinos, but the greater community, that we're a vibrant community in Saginaw, in the mid Michigan area. So what do you remember most about that process as we talk about that?
Oh boy. Honestly, I remember all of the people who had no idea what the Civica even was, let alone La Reina. I just remember introducing that all to them. They would all be like, "Oh, I seen your face on a flyer, or I seen you on the news. What was that about?" And I would explain, well, I won the La Reina contest, and I am representing. Yes, that's the one.
It really gives you an opportunity to educate people.
It does. I educated a lot of people, and I introduced a lot of people to this, which that's what I remember most, other than all the other wonderful things.
There she is, Queen Alejandra. and like I said earlier, we are following a tradition that dates way back in 1945, because the Civica, when they first became an organization, a civic organization in the community, that was one of the three main points that they wanted to portray as an organization, was their culture. It was important. They were fighting for civil rights, during that time in 1945. Can you imagine how it was for Latinos in this community? But they wanted to make sure, because they knew that they were losing the language. They lost the language to the generations that were their children and their grandchildren. And as we assimilated as Latinos in America, some of that was missing and forgotten. And so they wanted to make sure that part of the reason why the Unión Cívica Mexicana was in existence was so that the culture was saved in some respects. And so part of this Queen pageantry really involves that. And it involves having a queen to be that face, like I said, and represent and educate and bring the different events and introduce them to the community. So it's it's a big responsibility.
It is.
And in 2019, when you became the Queen, what was your first thoughts when you were up there at the Adelante Awards? I remember, and you were being crowned in front of that whole crowd at the Red Room at the Dow Event Center.
Well, first off, I just want to say obviously nobody knew that the pandemic was coming, but I'm extremely glad that I was able to participate in that event specifically, just because my grandpa Jimmy, he won an Adelante Award many years prior, so I'm glad I could have that small connection with him. However, my first thought when I first was there was, I was just like, wow. I had never been to a ceremony like that before, and it was very professional. It was very it was so much fun to see everybody get together and celebrate and just have a good time. I was kind of nervous, just a little bit. There's a lot of people there, but I had my girls next to me and all my important people there. So it was a great time, and I was excited to get the ball rolling.
And we were all dressed to the nines.
We were. We looked good.
Yeah, and as she mentioned, her grandfather, Jimmy Fulgencio, as well as her uncle, George Fulgencio, they were the inaugural recipients of the cultural award of the Adelante Awards back in 2010. And then I'm just trying to remember. It's been a while. It's been 12 years, and we want to bring that event back as well to the community. It's just been really difficult, and we're doing the smaller events, and then hopefully we'll lead up to that, and make that a part of the signature events of the Unión Cívica as well. What would you say, Alejandra, to any young girl out there that's thinking of running for Queen, one, and then also pursuing an education the way you have?
So, for running for Queen, if you have any doubts, I know it can be scary, but just do it. And when you're doing it, just be honest and have fun about, who you are. They ask you a lot of questions about who you are because they really want to know who you are. And you just got to let them in. I mean, they're there for you. They will be there for you. They want to be there for you. It's a lot of fun, and you will learn so much. You will meet so many new people, and there's no other opportunity like this one here in Saginaw. So that's for sure. So definitely do it. Get your applications in there, but there's already applications in, so I'm glad about that. But and then about pursuing education was always laid on me as I was growing up. Super duper important. I was always taught. So I wholeheartedly believe that still. So if anybody's thinking about it, it is also scary. Just be honest with yourself about your likes, your dislikes, your passions and desires, and go for it. I mean, life is too short not to.
Yeah, and it's really something to have the network behind you, because I know that members of the Unión Cívica, they always refer to you as Reina. Whenever we see you do and accomplish something, we're always so happy. It brings joy to our hearts. And it's the same for your mother. I always refer to her as Reina as well.
Yes.
And I remember hearing that you and the girls, Marissa Cardinali and Gabby, we're doing great things, because I do have connections. I ran into Ali, her boyfriend. He was helping at the Civica with our Petito sales. And so, it's really nice to have those connections. And we have, it's like a generational thing. We even have 3-year-olds and 5-year-olds. And if you go to the Civica, say on a Thursday or Friday, and there's kids running around, I always make jokes and say we got Larry's daycare here as well, while we're selling patitos. But, that's how the Civica always has been. It's always been about family. It's been about celebration of life, and the quinceañeras and the tamales and all those things that make our culture, so dynamic and so vibrant. Yes. And, I want to ask my producer, Jonathan, because, he is the non-Hispanic in the room, and I always kind of throw this question to him. And, he's on the other shows here at WSGW. What do you think when you're hearing about all this? Because this is kind of new to you, right, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think it's great. If you don't mind, can I go back to the Dia de los Muertos? Because that's something that, I never took Spanish, and I know a big part of learning any language is learning about the culture. But I think that learning what the meaning behind it is brings an entirely new depth to the tradition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do have a question, and maybe you have a different perspective on this as you're from two different generations here. How a lot of these traditions have gotten kind of Americanized. Even you think Cinco de Mayo has gotten a little bit Americanized.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's happened with Dia de los Muertos. Do I miss the mark on that? And if it hasn't, why not?
Good question. Very good question. Well, I'll let Alejandra answer after me. Because I don't want to put her on the spot. But that is a tough question. But with like Cinco de Mayo, it really has become Americanized. When you see them donning the sombreros and the mustaches, and they're getting really drunk at the bars, and it's a celebration, and they want to celebrate Cinco de Mayo just like they would St. Patty's Day or anything. It's a little disrespectful to the community when we see that, because it's not understanding that the Battle of Puebla, and how the lesser army Mexican army, the lesser Mexican army, overthrew the French army, and they won that battle in Puebla way back, in the old days, and that was the significance of Cinco de Mayo. So, like with Dia de los Muertos, I really feel, as we have had these annual events, and we tried to educate the community, not only the non-Hispanics, but some of the Hispanics in our community that weren't familiar with it as well, because, like I said, they assimilated and they did away with that cultural part of their community. It makes me want to, say to everybody that, the Disney movie really did a good job
Yeah.
on what they did, because it is true. A lot of what you see in the movie, it is a cartoon. It is, a little bit a stretch, but for the most part, they got it right. And so I think because of that movie, it's really helped people understand the true meaning of what Dia de los Muertos was about.
And that's the other thing is, as it gets more popular, are you worried about it becoming more Americanized? But if the movie that popularized it did it the right way, I don't think there would be that fear.
True. What are you thinking, Alejandra? What do you think about that?
I think your logic is accurate. Yeah, no, I think prior to Coco coming out, Dia de los Muertos wasn't as known about as Cinco de Mayo is, so there wasn't really that opportunity to Americanize it as much as Cinco de Mayo has been. Now that Coco has come out, like Larry has said, most of its portrayals are true. I don't think the worry is that great for it to become Americanized. However, this is America, and everything eventually becomes Americanized. It's then just our responsibility as Latinos to, correct their wrong sayings, and to stand up for our culture and our religion.
And I think it's really important to make sure that anybody who wants to don a calavera face, say during Halloween, or even during Dia de los Muertos, I hope they understand the meaning behind that and not look at the scare tactic of wearing a skeleton face. That's not what this is about by any means. And just so that my listeners understand, in the Christian faiths, especially in the Catholic faith, they celebrate All Souls Day and All Saints Day, November 1st and November 2nd, and that's annually. And when the friars came, the Spaniards, when they came and they colonized, the Mexican regions with the Aztecs and the Mayans, it was a meshing of those two cultures that brought forth Dia de los Muertos, really, because the Aztecs and the Mayans, they really believed in that spiritual world and the connection, and they really had these ofrendas and these altars, and sometimes to the extreme that they had sacrifices and all. So when you mesh that with the Spaniards coming in and bringing the Christianity faith to that region, it really accelerated the Catholic faith, because as we know, even today, I think when Pope John Paul II came to Mexico, he said 80% of the Catholics or the Mexicans were Catholic. I mean, it really is something that is pertaining to religion as well, and sometimes that's forgotten in all of this. But like I have said, it's a celebration of life. Even though when you hear Dia de los Muertos, means Day of the Dead, it's not the Halloween connotation, the scary tactic. Like I said, it is a celebration of life, and that's what we're celebrating at the Unión Cívica when we have the annual celebrations, and we're remembering those, our loved ones who had beautiful lives here, and we love them, and we want to meet them in the eternal life as they depicted with Mama Coco in the movie Coco, right?
Yeah.
So, man, what a show tonight, huh? To educate about Dia de los Muertos. We want to express gratitude to Phil Eck, who was on our show before, who writes for the city of Saginaw and Riverfront Saginaw. He did an interview with me in regard to this, and it's getting a lot of posts, hits on Facebook and all, because it's educating people. He sat me down at the Civica, and we talked about Dia de los Muertos and why we celebrate it and all. And it's really, come a long way, like I say, because many years back, I remember trying to bring forth an article about Dia de los Muertos, when I was an intern at the Saginaw News, and, it was turned down. It was turned down when, we tried to have a display as well, even at the Castle Museum many years ago. And lo and behold, this summer we had the Castle Museum. They had Dia de los Muertos exhibit. And so, like I said, we've really come a long way. So please, if anybody wants to know more about it, come on November the 2nd, Wednesday, to the Unión Cívica Mexicana for the 13th annual Dia de los Muertos. We're going to have TNT, authentic Mexican food, as well as Maria's restaurant food trucks and the Cobb King, and of course our patitos. And we're going to celebrate with ofrendas and calavera faces. And we're also going to push the Get Out the Vote campaign, because that November 8th is the midterm elections. And we want to make sure our voices are heard. So thank you, everybody. Thank you to our reigning reina, Queen Alejandra Fulgencio. And thank you for being with us tonight, everybody. It's been a pleasure to educate everybody on Dia de los Muertos. And I hope you will support the Queen's Dance as well on November the 5th, Saturday, with Gabriel Bruciaga as the band playing. And we're bringing back that tradition as well. So until next week, I will see you later. I hope you all stay safe and well and take care of each other. Hasta luego. Well, thanks everybody for being with us tonight. I've seen a lot of people in the room and a lot of hearts out here. How come nobody gave us any questions or in the chat room? I guess everybody's shy tonight, but I hope you will attend these events, especially the Queen's Dance. Alejandra said she's going to be there to crown the new queen, whoever that is going to be, November 5th. I hope you will bring your friends and family to kind of support and honor this long tradition that we've had at the Unión Cívica Mexicana. It dates back to 1945. Come on. So, and then of course the Dia de los Muertos celebration in the food trucks. You can get your great tacos and then come in, sit down, eat in the Civica, and look at the beautiful ofrendas that we're going to have from 12 to 7 p.m. on November 2nd. That's next Wednesday. And I hope to see you all there. So until next time, we'll see you here on Mi Gente on Air.